Hello again, everybody. Joseph P. Farrell with yet another video blog. I'm doing more of these in response to those of you who said that you really liked the video blogs. And I'm doing it also because I've had some things come up very suddenly, and I've got to tend to them in the next couple of weeks. So I've got to get my blogging done somehow, and the videos are an easy way for me to do it. But I will be doing more written blogs, so please don't worry about that. Anyway, there's an interesting article at the Daily Bell from Wednesday, April 25th. And as you know, I like the Daily Bell, particularly for how they report on the developing situation in Europe. And this report is entitled, Is the Euro Slowly Dying? And again, I'll put the link up for you on the website version of this video blog when it's scheduled. The real interesting thing about this article is that it points out, number one, that the plan of the financial elite in London, in the Eurozone, in London and in Frankfurt, was by creating a sovereign debt crisis to centralize more and more power in Brussels. And I'm using this article as kind of an interesting, or taking this article as kind of an interesting example of how, in spite of the most thoroughly thought out plan of any elite, there's always going to be the factor of human decision and choice that is going to go in another direction than what the elite has anticipated or thinks or plans for. I like to use the analogy for those of you who think that the elites in London and New York, the financial elites, are all powerful and omnicompetent. Well, certainly they are very influential. They're very good at what they do. After all, they have supercomputers that can game out and model scenario after scenario after scenario. But in spite of that fact, the fact remains that any amount of human planning for all contingencies is just an impossibility. And I've always used the example of the plans that the various militaries drew up prior to World War I, these vast schedules of railway mobilizations and trains and so on to get this battalion to that place on the appointed date and time for the beginning of military operations. All right. These vast timetables and military plans that were put into place by the various general staffs of Europe prior to World War I, with everything detailed down to the last order of march and the last objective that they were supposed to take. And of course, as we all know, World War I turned out to be a huge failure of these military plans, particularly of the French and the Germans. The French had their Plan 17, the Germans had their Schlieffen Plan, and neither plan in the end was followed exactly because neither side was doing exactly what the other side's plan said they should be doing. So, and the other classic example of that was, of course, the German invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941, which again is a plan that was worked out to the last detail. And the plan didn't account for two things. It didn't account for the rapid and almost breathtaking initial German successes, nor did it account for some of the stubborn Russian resistance. And so the plan had to be kind of completely jettisoned within a mere month and a half after the beginning of operations. So we have another case of a plan to create a crisis and centralize power in Brussels. Now, the interesting thing in this article is that in Italy, something's happening that the Daily Bell points out may not have actually been part of the original thinking of the planners when they set up these crises. And the thing that's going on in Italy appears to be spreading to Greece and to Spain and to Portugal, all right? And eventually, of course, it's going to spread to the other countries, Holland and France. Now, what's going on is that they are taking investments in Italy and putting pension funds and so on and so forth into local investments in Italy, all right? So, in other words, as the Daily Bell points out, this could be a move preparatory because it's the exact sort of move that you would make if you were to go back to the use of the Italian lira as your national currency. All right. And what the Daily Bell is pointing out is if that happens, the Italians will certainly take a hit, but not as dramatic or drastic a hit as they will under the current situation, under the current system, because in that case, everything would be revalued in terms of the national currency, the lira. All right. This is going to spread, in my opinion. And, you know, again, my hat's off to the Daily Bell for pointing this very, very interesting development out, because this, I think, is going to spread. It's going to spread particularly to Greece and Spain. And if it spreads to Greece and Spain and they find out, hey, we can get along just as fine under the old system of the lira or the peso or the drachma as we can under this abominable system with the euro, with us being told how to run our economies out of Brussels and Frankfurt, then yeah, I think you're going to see the euro, as the Daily Bell implies in this article, possibly slowly die. Now, there's a geopolitical implication here that the Daily Bell does not get into, and that is that if this happens, this is going to leave Germany in a rather difficult position, politically speaking, with respect to the Eurozone. Because again, it's largely been Germany that has been pushing for the austerity measures that Brussels is trying to impose on Greece and Italy and Spain and Portugal. All right. In other words, it's Brussels acting as a front man for Germany. If this happens, if the euro unravels, Germany is going to be put into the position of having to consider very seriously whether they want to continue in the euro or go back to the Deutschmark and rely upon their export-driven economy. And if that's the case, you're going to see something happen that I've been advocating would happen all along. If that's the case, Germany will realign itself much more closely than it already is with Russia, number one, as its energy supplier, because Germany will not want to jeopardize its economic or national security by too much dependency on Middle Eastern oil, and therefore it will turn inevitably and naturally to Russia. This is going to cement the current German-Russian economic dominance of Eastern Europe even more. And you're going to see, as a result of that, Germany is going to develop much closer ties with China because, again, China is a major part of the German economy. The Germans export a lot of things to China. They import a lot of things from China. So if the euro keeps going the way that the Daily Bell is suggesting, we're going to see a transformation also of European politics. The European Union may indeed, theoretically, entertaining the wild possibility, the European Union may indeed split in half. And if it splits in half, you're going to see Germany and its dominated countries going towards Russia and China, and then the rest of the European Union gravitating, what's left of it, gravitating around France. So it's going to be a very, very interesting development to watch. I really doff my hat to the Daily Bell for bringing these recent developments in Italy to the public's attention because they are significant. Italy is turning inward. It's seeking solutions that are not being dictated from Brussels. And it's an indicator, once again, that plan as you will, game out what you will, strategize how you will, people are inevitably going to find some way to flow around the obstacles. And if this is what's going on, it's going to be a very, very interesting 2 years, folks. Anyway, those are my thoughts for the day, and I'll see you on the flip side. Bye-bye, everybody.